The white manager's smirk widened as security cameras rolled silently overhead, completely unaware that his next words would cost him his 15-year career in luxury automotive retail. Dr. Amara Williams, 38 and impeccably dressed in a custom-tailored navy wool suit, stood motionless beside the gleaming Mercedes AMG GT, her manicured fingers gently tracing the car's pristine, aerodynamically perfect hood, while Derek Stone circled her like a predator sizing up prey on an open savanna. The blazing afternoon sun streamed through Premier Motors' magnificent floor-to-ceiling glass windows, casting long, dramatic shadows across the polished white marble showroom floor, while an unnoticed customer in the far corner held up her smartphone, live-streaming the unfolding interaction to over 50,000 followers, whose comments were already flooding the screen in an angry torrent. Amara's premium leather briefcase sat heavily on the reception desk, where a first-class international boarding pass peeked quietly from her jacket pocket, and her Apple Watch silently vibrated with 17 missed calls from the Goldman Sachs financial executive desk, signaling a massive corporate shift that was happening concurrently behind closed doors. These real-life stories remind us why authentic narratives matter most when institutional power collides head-on with deep-seated prejudice in places where wealth should theoretically erase bias, but instead amplifies it. Derek Stone adjusted his perfectly knotted silk tie, cleared his throat with a raspy sound, and stepped directly into Amara's personal space, his highly polished Italian leather Oxfords clicking loudly against the stone floor as he attempted to assert complete dominance over the environment. At 45 years old, Derek carried himself with the unearned, rigid arrogance of someone who had spent his entire life working within wealthy systems without ever being truly challenged by anyone he deemed beneath him, and he crossed his thick arms tightly over his chest as he positioned his body as a physical barrier between this sophisticated woman and the flagship vehicle on display. "Are you absolutely sure you are in the correct establishment?" Derek's voice carried that distinct, condescending tone reserved specifically for individuals he privately categorized as unworthy of his time because we specialize exclusively in elite luxury vehicles here, and our clientele is highly vetted. The live-streaming customer, a sharp 24-year-old digital creator named Jessica, carefully angled her phone's lens to capture every nuance of the escalating exchange, watching her active viewer count jump from 52,000 to over 60,000 in less than 3 minutes as viewers shared the link globally. Comments exploded across her screen, with users stating that this blatant discrimination was happening in real time at Premier Motors in the heart of Beverly Hills, urging someone to contact the major news networks because the display of bias was utterly disgusting. Amara calmly checked her watch, which indicated precisely 2:47 in the afternoon, meaning she had exactly 13 minutes remaining before her final corporate board vote was scheduled to conclude a timeline she had engineered with absolute precision. "I am exactly where I need to be," Amara replied, her voice remaining as smooth and still as deep water, completely unbothered by his aggressive posturing as she walked deliberately around the vehicle to examine the hand-stitched leather interior through the dark-tinted windows. "I am highly interested in purchasing this specific model today," she stated. But Derek's subsequent laugh held no genuine warmth or professional courtesy, instead echoing sharply off the showroom walls. "Do you happen to have a formal pre-approval from a recognized banking institution? Because these high-performance vehicles start at $180,000 before you even begin to calculate the extensive custom options, luxury taxes, and dealership registration fees." Behind the long mahogany reception desk, a senior sales associate named Maria Winstead, who had dedicated 6 faithful years to the dealership, watched the interaction with a sinking feeling in her stomach, recognizing the familiar behavioral patterns as Derek performed his exclusionary routine for an audience that existed only within his own biased imagination. Amara's phone buzzed with an intense vibration in her hand, the caller ID clearly displaying the words Wall Street Journal Financial Desk. Yet she declined the call without shifting her gaze from the vehicle's detailed specification sheet attached to the glass window. The AMG GT possesses incredibly impressive performance metrics, Amara noted quietly, running her finger along the edge of the printed technical details, including 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3.6 seconds, and a hand-built 503 horsepower engine. Derek moved even closer, his shadow completely blocking the sunlight hitting the car, as he said that perhaps they should start with something far more reasonable and aligned with her circumstances, pointing toward a small, certified, pre-owned lot down the street that might better fit a modest budget. The phone buzzed a second time this time, showing an incoming priority line from Goldman Sachs. But Amara declined that call as well, while Jessica's live stream viewer count surged past 65,000, catching the attention of local news aggregators who began sharing the raw footage under the rapidly growing hashtag Premier Motors Racism. At that moment, sales director Marcus Thompson emerged from his private glass office, drawn to the main floor by the unusual tension radiating through the showroom. And at 52 years old, Marcus had built his entire career on reading corporate environments quickly. Yet today, he would misread the situation entirely. "Is there a particular problem developing out here?" Marcus asked, directing his question entirely to Derek, rather than acknowledging the customer standing before them, which further solidified the exclusionary wall they were building. "I am simply attempting to assist this individual in locating something appropriate for her needs," Derek answered, placing an unmistakable heavy emphasis on the word appropriate while smirking slightly. Amara's leather briefcase remained on the reception counter, its heavy brass flap having shifted slightly to reveal internal legal corporate documents that bore the official letterhead of the Premier Automotive Group's parent corporation, a detail that Maria noticed from her seat, but chose to remain silent about out of sheer shock. "I would like to speak directly with the primary owner of this dealership," Amara stated with calm authority, causing Derek and Marcus to exchange amused, dismissive glances, before Derek replied that Mr. Rodriguez was far too busy handling actual premium customers to be disturbed by unannounced visitors. By now, the live stream comments had turned into a digital firestorm, with viewers demanding that corporate headquarters be contacted immediately, and swearing never to patronize any business associated with this brand. Security guard Mike Patterson watched the situation intensify from his designated post near the main entrance, his 15 years of experience giving him a distinct sense for structural escalation, causing his hand to hover instinctively near his communication radio. "Ma'am, if you are not seriously prepared to initiate a formal purchase inquiry today," Marcus said, stepping forward to align himself with Derek in a united front, "we must ask you to allow us to focus our attention on other patrons who have scheduled appointments." Amara's phone began to ring a third time, showing it was her executive assistant, Sarah, and this time she allowed it to ring twice before answering with absolute composure. "Yes, Sarah," Amara said, her voice clear and resonant enough in the quiet room for the nearby men to hear the frantic excitement on the other end of the line, as Sarah informed her that the board vote had concluded early, and the acquisition of Premier Automotive Group had been approved unanimously, giving her a 67% controlling interest. Perfect timing. Amara responded coolly. "Please inform the legal team that I will handle the immediate management transition," and personnel reviews personally before ending the call and sliding the sleek device back into her tailored jacket pocket while Derek and Marcus stood frozen, their minds completely failing to process the catastrophic weight of the words they had just overheard. Now, where exactly were we in our conversation regarding this vehicle? Amara asked, turning her full attention back to the Mercedes, while Derek's face flushed a deep, agitated crimson, having invested far too much of his ego into his discriminatory performance to back down in front of his supervisor. I am going to have to officially ask you to either present verifiable proof of funds or immediately vacate the showroom floor so our staff can assist families who are waiting. Derek insisted, his voice trembling slightly with a mixture of anger and hidden nervousness. A wealthy white couple who had been casually browsing luxury sports utility vehicles 30 feet away completely stopped pretending to shop, pulling out their own high-end smartphones to record their own angles of the confrontation as Jessica's live stream officially crossed 80,000 concurrent viewers worldwide. Mike Patterson approached the gathering group with slow, cautious steps, his radio crackling softly with real-time updates from the front reception desk as he asked if everything was remaining orderly on the floor. "We have the situation entirely under control," Mike Derek claimed, with a false layer of corporate authority. "We are simply ensuring our inventory is respected and helping this visitor understand our operational policies." Amara deliberately unclasped her briefcase and withdrew a thick, embossed legal folder that featured the unmistakable gold leaf letterhead of Goldman Sachs Asset Management, placing it directly onto the hood of the Mercedes, as if the two managers standing before her were completely invisible. Ma'am Derek's voice rose significantly in pitch and volume. "You cannot place personal items onto the paint of a showroom vehicle. I must insist that you remove them immediately." "Actually," Derek Amara interrupted, looking up for the very first time since she had arrived at the dealership, her piercing eyes locking onto his with an intensity that caused his breath to catch. "I need to ask you a very specific question about your employment contract." The entire showroom fell into a heavy, suffocating silence, broken only by the low, continuous hum of the central air conditioning system and the muffled sounds of high-end traffic passing by on Rodeo Drive outside the glass. Over 90,000 people were now actively watching through Jessica's phone screen, as Amara Williams prepared to systematically dismantle the hierarchy that had protected these men for over a decade. The silence stretched for 10 agonizing seconds that felt like hours to Marcus, who was beginning to feel an inexplicable sense of dread creeping up his spine as he checked his luxury watch with increasing frequency. "What exactly could you possibly need to ask me about my employment?" Derek countered, trying desperately to maintain his mask of forced patience while shifting his weight uncomfortably from one foot to the other. Amara smiled, a quiet, knowing smile that carried no submission or fear, but rather the supreme confidence of a grandmaster who had already secured a checkmate 5 moves in advance. "I will address that matter in precise detail in just a moment," she said, as the live stream count hit 100,000, and local news vans from major networks began pulling into the dealership's pristine parking lot outside their satellite dishes, extending into the afternoon sky. Mike's radio crackled loudly once again as the front desk dispatcher informed him that multiple news crews were actively setting up camera gear on the perimeter sidewalk, prompting Mike to keep his eyes glued to Amara. Sarah called back on the main line, and Amara immediately answered, intentionally placing the call on speakerphone without warning, allowing Sarah's professional voice to echo across the marble floor. "Dr. Williams, Our chief legal counsel requires immediate confirmation regarding the existing management structure at Premier Motors Beverly Hills before we officially file the state regulatory updates. Should we proceed with the immediate implementation of the termination protocols? Every single person within earshot completely froze in place, the color draining from Derek's face until he looked completely hollow, while Marcus took an involuntary, unconscious step backward, away from his colleague. "Yes, Sarah. Please execute the full operational transition plan immediately, as I am currently on site and will be conducting the initial executive management and personnel reviews personally," Amara commanded with absolute finality. "Understood." Dr. Williams, the official corporate acquisition documentation is being uploaded to the California Secretary of State's portal right now, meaning you will hold complete operational and structural control of the facility within the next 10 minutes. Derek tried to find his voice, but could only produce a weak stuttering sound as he asked what possible documentation she could be referring to, his arrogance rapidly dissolving into sheer panic. Amara reached into her folder and withdrew a heavy, blue-backed legal document that bore the title Acquisition and Asset Purchase Agreement, Premier Automotive Group, in bold, raised lettering. "This documentation right here, Derek," she stated clearly, holding the pages open at an angle that allowed the overhead security cameras to capture the legal signatures perfectly for the corporate record. Meridian Capital officially finalized the complete purchase and acquisition of the entire Premier Motors franchise network at precisely 2:45 this afternoon, which means as of exactly 17 minutes ago, I am the sole managing partner and majority shareholder of this entire enterprise. Marcus grabbed Derek's arm tightly, his voice cracking as he whispered that she had to be bluffing, because an acquisition of this magnitude would require months of executive notice telling Maria to call the founding owner, Mr. Rodriguez, immediately. "That action will be entirely unnecessary," Amara countered smoothly, "because Mr. Rodriguez signed the final transfer papers in New York this morning and is currently celebrating the transaction, having received an acquisition price that sat 67% above current market valuation." The wealthy couple recording nearby gasped loudly, the husband whispering to his wife that this woman didn't just come to buy a high-end luxury vehicle, she literally bought the entire multi-million-dollar corporation on the spot. Jessica's live stream completely exploded with thousands of messages a second, pushing the viewer count to 120,000 as the phrase, "Premier Motors Owned," began trending nationally on major social media platforms. Suddenly, Derek's corporate cell phone buzzed violently with an urgent red flag text message from the main corporate office stating that an emergency ownership transition meeting was being called immediately and all local management was ordered to report to the main conference room without delay. "This is completely impossible," Derek muttered to himself, his hands beginning to shake as his entire reality crumbled around him, realizing the legal paperwork before him was undeniably authentic and the timing was too flawless to be a hoax. Amara's phone rang once more, and the caller ID showed the direct line of the Premier Automotive Group corporate headquarters, which she answered with her characteristic formal tone. "Dr. Williams, this is Janet Rodriguez speaking from the Corporate Transition Office. I wanted to formally welcome you to the helm of the Premier family and explicitly assure you that our entire staff is at your disposal to ensure a seamless leadership handover." Every single word cut through the silent showroom like a knife, causing Derek to sink back against the fender of the Mercedes AMG GT, as if his legs could no longer support the weight of his own body. Thank you, Janet. I truly appreciate your cooperation throughout this intense negotiation process, and I am currently on the showroom floor preparing to implement some immediate and necessary policy changes regarding staff conduct, Amara explained. Of course, Dr. Williams, whatever you require to optimize operations, I understand that Derek Stone and Marcus Thompson are currently on the floor with you and have been instructed to report to you directly for their updated assignments. Derek's phone buzzed with an automated calendar notification reading, Mandatory Executive Review with New Ownership. Conference Room A at 3:15 p.m., and Marcus looked down to see the exact same message flashing on his screen, his face turning an ash-gray color. There appears to have been a massive structural misunderstanding here, Dr. Williams, Marcus said with a weak, pleading voice. We were never given any indication by the previous board that a sale was even being negotiated. That was entirely intentional on our part, Amara replied with cold precision, because corporate management transitions always yield the most accurate data when the existing staff is evaluated under completely normal, unvarnished operating conditions, and I must say that today's interaction has been profoundly educational for our investment group. Mike's security radio crackled again with an urgent tone from the front gate reporting that international news affiliates, including the BBC and Sky News, were actively pulling up to the curb alongside local stations requesting immediate on-camera statements. The live stream audience had now climbed to an unprecedented 150,000 viewers, with alternative streams popping up from different angles within the room, as onlookers documented every single second of the corporate execution. I don't understand, Derek whispered, his voice completely stripped of its previous booming, dismissive arrogance. If you already possess the capital to purchase this entire dealership, why didn't you simply inform us of your status the moment you walked through the front doors? Amara closed the legal folder with a deliberate echoing snap and placed it back into her briefcase with the methodical care of a scientist handling volatile compounds. Because if I had done that, Derek, I would have never had the opportunity to witness exactly how you treat ordinary human beings when you believe they don't possess the economic power to command your respect, she said, walking past him without a second glance to examine a bright red Porsche 911 parked nearby. Tell me, Derek, throughout your 15 years of managing this prestigious location, how many hundreds of hard-working, successful individuals have you driven away from this brand simply because your internal bias blinded you to their true value? Derek opened his mouth to offer an excuse, but his vocal cords failed him entirely, leaving him standing there looking completely defeated while Marcus desperately tried to step in to save his own corporate standing. Dr. Williams, please understand that we had absolutely no way of knowing your background. Your visit was entirely unscheduled and unexpected given our typical client profiles, Marcus argued. Unexpected. Amara repeated, her voice laced with iron as she ran her fingers smoothly along the Porsche's hood. An impeccably dressed woman walking into a luxury dealership to purchase a luxury vehicle is considered unexpected to you simply because of the color of her skin. The security cameras overhead continued to record every micro-expression, while the live streams broadcasted her powerful words to a global audience that was loudly demanding full accountability for both men. Perhaps it would be best for all parties involved if we moved this highly sensitive conversation into the privacy of the back offices, away from the public, Marcus suggested, looking nervously at the growing crowd outside. Privacy is a luxury and a privilege that you completely forfeit the exact moment you choose to project your personal prejudices into a public space, Amara countered firmly. And besides, absolute operational transparency builds consumer trust, which is precisely what excellent customer service requires. Sarah called Amara's line again, and this time Amara chose to keep the audio private as she listened to the final background checks completed by the Human Resources Legal Division. Dr. Williams, the corporate employment contracts for both individuals have been thoroughly verified, and because California is an at-will employment state and their contracts contain strict behavioral clauses, you have full authority to execute immediate termination for cause. Thank you for the confirmation. Sarah, please have the necessary corporate exit documentation generated and emailed to my tablet. Within the next 3 minutes, Amara instructed before hanging up and turning her full, undivided attention back to the two men. Gentlemen, we have reached the moment where definitive structural decisions must be made, and given that this entire interaction has been thoroughly documented by multiple independent sources, the next 10 minutes will dictate the trajectory of your professional lives. Derek's phone flashed with a text message from his wife asking if he was the manager currently being featured on the live breaking news broadcast, while Marcus received a message from his brother stating that his face was currently trending #1 on Twitter across the United States. The narrative had completely broken free from the confines of the Beverly Hills showroom, spreading internationally across 12 different countries, within an hour turning Premier Motors into a global symbol of corporate bias. What is it that you want from us at this point? Derek asked, his voice cracking slightly as he looked down at the floor, completely unable to meet her gaze. I want the exact same thing that every single customer who crosses the threshold of this establishment deserves, Derek. I want to be treated with basic human dignity and professional respect, but the pressing question is whether you are even fundamentally capable of providing that level of service. The cameras continued to roll silently. The digital audience held its collective breath, and the world watched in real time as a powerful executive held a biased system completely accountable for its actions. Amara opened her briefcase once more, withdrawing a secondary legal binder that was marked with bright red corporate priority tape, her movements completely unhurried. Before we proceed with the final personnel actions, I want both of you to look closely at these internal metrics, she said, opening the binder on the Mercedes hood to reveal a comprehensive multi-layered data analysis of the dealership's historical performance. Meridian Capital does not invest tens of millions of dollars into businesses based on a whim, Derek. We conduct exhaustive forensic and sociological research before we ever make an acquisition offer. Her finger pointed directly to a stark line graph that detailed customer service complaints over the preceding 18 months, showing a massive 340% increase in formal discrimination reports filed against this specific location. Derek stared at the numbers, his breathing becoming shallow, as he realized that his behavior had been tracked and analyzed long before today's incident occurred. Specifically, Amara continued flipping the page to expose a detailed breakdown of lost revenue. These complaints consistently involved floor managers making immediate, unverified assumptions about a customer's purchasing capability based entirely on external factors such as race, age, and clothing choices. Jessica adjusted her phone's tripod to ensure her 200,000 viewers could see the charts clearly, which were now being broadcasted by major news networks who had officially spliced her live feed into their regular programming. "This data cannot be accurate," Marcus stammered. "We have consistently met our monthly sales quotas and followed the standard corporate guidelines established by the previous ownership group." Corporate guidelines are completely useless when the individual managers implementing them possess deep-seated biases that actively drive away profitable business, Amara explained with an icy tone. These documented incidents of prejudice have cost Premier Motors an estimated $2.3 million annually in completely lost sales, severe reputational damage, and customer defection to high-end competitors who understand how to treat a diverse clientele. The financial reality was absolute, documented, and utterly devastating to their careers, leaving them with absolutely no legal or corporate defense to stand on. But what makes today truly significant, Amara revealed, withdrawing a third document from her briefcase, is that my visit today was not a spontaneous shopping trip, but rather the pre-planned final evaluation of this facility's management. Mike's security radio signaled that the entire front sidewalk was now completely blocked by major media trucks with anchors preparing for live on-scene broadcasts regarding the Beverly Hills corporate scandal. For the past 6 months, Meridian Capital has been systematically documenting the operational culture at Premier Motors using highly trained mystery shoppers from various diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, and today was simply the definitive final test. Amara held up a tiny high-tech digital recording device that was disguised as a luxury lapel pin, informing them that the device had captured every single word of their interaction with crystal-clear audio quality. "You actually recorded our private conversations without our explicit knowledge," Derek whispered, his eyes widening in absolute horror as he realized the depth of the legal trap he had walked into. "I recorded your public customer service approach, Derek, just as your own security infrastructure and social media recorded it. But the critical difference is that my device also captured your candid comments when you believed I was completely out of earshot." Marcus's phone rang loudly with a direct call from the corporate vice president, but he chose to completely ignore it, his eyes fixed on Amara as she prepared to read from the transcript. "Exactly 49 minutes ago, you stood at the reception counter and explicitly told Maria that I looked like nothing but trouble and instructed her to keep an extra close eye on the high-end merchandise. Should I play that file for the news crews outside?" Maria gasped loudly from behind the desk, covering her mouth in shock, having never imagined that the casual, discriminatory remarks made by her superiors were being digitally captured for a federal compliance file. "You also explicitly instructed Mike to stand by with his radio to forcefully escort me out the moment I became difficult, which occurred exactly 31 minutes ago while you were returning from your break." Mike shifted his weight uncomfortably, looking down at his boots, realizing that what he had considered routine manager instructions were actually pieces of critical evidence in an institutional discrimination case. Jessica's chat feed exploded with absolute outrage from viewers around the world, with the phrase "justice" for Amara reaching the #1 trending spot globally as the live viewer count reached an astonishing 250,000 people. But the most legally damaging recording occurred exactly 22 minutes ago when you placed a private phone call to your close friend who manages the Mercedes dealership over in Beverly Hills, Amara stated, holding up her tablet. "Should I play the exact audio file where you stated, and I quote, 'Some arrogant woman is completely wasting my time over the AMG GT and definitely cannot afford it. So I need you to do me a favor and blacklist her name across our local dealer network so she stops chasing clout.'" The showroom became so profoundly quiet that the ticking of a wall clock 40 feet away became clearly audible to the hundreds of thousands of people watching online who were holding their collective breath. Attempting to implement an industry-wide blacklist against a consumer based entirely on racial profiling and unverified financial assumptions violates approximately 14 separate federal and state civil rights laws. Amara stated with complete legal precision. The potential structural liability exposure from that single phone call alone vastly exceeds this specific dealership's annual comprehensive insurance coverage limit, meaning you have put this entire enterprise at catastrophic financial risk. She closed the binder firmly and returned it to its secure slot inside her briefcase, looking at the two men with an expression of calm, professional judgment. Meridian Capital specializes exclusively in acquiring underperforming corporate assets that suffer from deep systemic cultural problems, and we systematically eliminate those problems to unlock the true financial and human value of the brand. What exactly does that mean for our future employment here? Marcus asked, his voice shaking violently as he tried to mentally prepare for the worst possible outcome. It means, Marcus, that your professional future in this industry depends entirely on how you conduct yourself over the next 5 minutes, whereas Derek's fate has already been completely sealed by his own definitive actions today. Sarah's voice came through the tablet speaker once again, confirming that the Executive Legal Committee had reviewed the audio files and was recommending immediate termination for cause regarding Derek Stone, with 0 severance package and a complete refusal to provide professional references. Derek sank heavily into a nearby leather lounge chair, burying his face in his trembling hands as his entire career in the luxury automotive sector vanished into thin air. What is the legal team's recommendation regarding the Marcus Thompson situation? Amara asked into the microphone, keeping her eyes fixed on the remaining manager. The situation with Mr. Thompson is slightly less definitive. While he actively participated in the environment, he did not initiate the discriminatory phone calls or blacklisting attempts, so we recommend a strict 90-day disciplinary probation period coupled with mandatory executive compliance training and weekly performance monitoring. Marcus exhaled a massive, shaky breath, wiping sweat from his forehead as he looked at Amara with profound gratitude, stating that he was completely ready to do whatever it took to correct his failures. "We will see about that," Marcus Amara responded coolly. "Please instruct HR to implement the immediate termination for cause against Derek Stone, effective this exact second, and schedule Mr. Thompson's formal review for 9 o'clock tomorrow morning." She ended the call, stood up to her full height, and looked down at Derek with an expression that was completely devoid of personal malice, but filled with absolute authority. "You have exactly 2 choices available to you right now, Derek. You can choose to sign this immediate resignation agreement, which offers a completely neutral employment verification listing only your dates of service, or you can refuse to sign and be formally terminated for cause with a permanent regulatory record of discriminatory conduct attached to your license." The live stream audience had now reached 300,000 concurrent viewers, and major networks were breaking into national programming to cover the stunning developments unfolding live in Beverly Hills. Either way, Amara continued, "You will be required to issue a formal, written public apology to this organization and the community, acknowledging the exact nature of your behavior and its wider social impact, which will be prominently displayed on our corporate landing page for the next 30 days. Derek looked up, his eyes bloodshot and filled with a mixture of intense humiliation and financial fear, pleading that he had a family to support, a heavy mortgage in an expensive neighborhood, and 2 children currently attending private universities. You should have deeply considered the welfare of your family before you chose to systematically profile and humiliate paying customers based entirely on their physical appearance," Amara replied without a single hint of emotion. "Your personal financial responsibilities do not excuse your professional misconduct or your complete lack of basic human decency on this showroom floor." Mike's communication radio crackled with another high-priority update from the front office, stating that the office of the mayor of Beverly Hills was on the line, requesting an immediate community meeting with Dr. Williams to discuss inclusive business practices. Inform the mayor's chief of staff that I will personally return the call within the hour, Amara instructed, before sliding a single-page document across the hood of the Mercedes toward Derek. This is your formal resignation document, Derek. It has been pre-drafted by our legal team and is fully binding. You can choose to execute it now or wait 20 minutes for the formal termination sheriff's notice to arrive. Derek's hands shook so violently that he could barely grip the platinum pen Amara extended toward him, his eyes scanning the professional, unyielding legal text that signaled the absolute end of his career. If I sign this right now, you give me your word that the corporate office will only verify my dates of employment and position held without disclosing the internal files to future employers, he whispered. Our corporate policy strictly adheres to legal verification standards. Nothing more and nothing less, Amara stated, watching as he finally placed his signature on the line. Thank you, Derek. You are now officially dismissed from these premises. Please collect your personal desk items immediately and exit the facility through the rear service doors under Mike's direct security escort. Mike stepped forward with absolute professionalism, gesturing for Derek to follow him toward the back offices, leaving Marcus standing completely alone on the marble floor to face his new corporate reality. Marcus, Amara said, her voice dropping to a low, serious register, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock sharp. We will determine whether you have a future within this new corporate structure, and I suggest you spend this evening deeply reflecting on what you witnessed today. Yes, ma'am, I completely understand and accept the terms, Marcus replied as the crowd outside began to loudly cheer through the glass windows, having watched Derek being escorted out the back of the building. Exactly 6 weeks after Derek Stone's highly publicized departure from the franchise, the internal operational culture of Premier Motors looked and felt fundamentally transformed from top to bottom. The profound structural changes weren't merely visible in the pristine alignment of the luxury vehicles or the immaculate cleanliness of the showroom floor, but rather in the intangible, respectful shift in human culture that now permeated every single customer interaction. Marcus Thompson stood near the grand entrance of the facility, carefully reviewing real-time data on his corporate tablet, while watching his newly diversified sales team assist a bustling morning crowd of buyers. The morning rush had brought its usual eclectic mix of high-earning Beverly Hills professionals, prominent entertainment industry executives, and international investors. But today, every single individual was treated with the exact same gold standard level of professional courtesy. Good morning, Dr. Williams, Marcus said with a respectful nod, as Amara walked through the front doors for her unannounced weekly operational walkthrough, which she utilized to maintain absolute compliance standards across the board. Good morning, Marcus. Let's review the updated performance and conversion metrics for this quarter, Amara requested, stepping into the central viewing area. Marcus quickly pulled up the live data dashboard, showing that overall customer satisfaction scores had surged by an incredible 38% across every single demographic category since the acquisition took place. Furthermore, our overall sales conversion rates have improved by 22%, driven primarily by massive revenue gains among affluent minority populations, who previously avoided our facility due to the reputation of the former management team. The hard empirical data completely validated Amara's core business philosophy that corporate diversity and inclusion are not merely moral imperatives, but highly profitable strategies that maximize shareholder value. Tell me about the recent changes you have implemented regarding our frontline sales staff, Amara asked, as they walked slowly across the polished floor toward the flagship displays. We have successfully hired 6 exceptional new sales associates over the past month, 3 of whom are top-tier graduates from our new recruitment partnership with local university business programs, Marcus explained. 2 of our other hires were scouted directly from the concierge desks of 5-star luxury hotels, bringing elite hospitality standards to the automotive sector, while our final hire is a technical specialist from an electric vehicle manufacturer. The visible diversity of the sales floor now accurately reflected the true demographic makeup of the wider Los Angeles metropolitan area, completely replacing the narrow, exclusionary profile that had historically dominated the showroom under Derek's management. Near the main display, a newly hired bilingual associate named Jennifer Martinez was casually conversing with a young African-American couple who were examining a premium luxury sport utility vehicle. Her customer approach was incredibly informative, warm, and entirely free of the invasive financial qualifying questions that had previously defined the dealership's toxic sales culture. "How has Jennifer been performing relative to her monthly targets?" Amara inquired quietly as they watched the positive interaction unfold from a distance. "She has been absolutely exceptional, Dr. Williams. She successfully closed 3 major high-ticket sales last week alone, including a full cash purchase of a limited edition track car, and her independent customer feedback scores sit at a perfect 98%. Jennifer's extensive background in high-end hospitality allowed her to seamlessly transition into automotive retail, proving that baseline human empathy and top-tier service skills are universally transferable across industries." Over in the performance sedan section, a young associate named David Kim was patiently explaining the complex nuances of a hybrid drivetrain to an elderly Latina woman and her grandson, ensuring she understood every feature. David's background is particularly fascinating. Marcus noted he actually holds a degree in aerospace engineering, but explicitly desired a career path that featured direct human interaction. And his deep technical expertise has been an incredible asset to our clients. Our new monthly community outreach initiatives have also completely transformed our relationship with the surrounding neighborhoods, turning historical skeptics into loyal brand advocates who trust our operational integrity. We have partnered extensively with local minority business coalitions, civil rights organizations, and professional networks to host financial literacy workshops and community events right here in our showroom. Marcus reported that last month's first-time luxury buyer educational seminar attracted over 67 highly qualified attendees, 12 of whom have already transitioned into active vehicle owners within our system. More importantly, we have successfully established deep, trust-based relationships with community leaders that extend far beyond individual sales transactions, completely erasing the negative stigma left behind by the previous management. Amara reviewed the real-time inputs on the internal bias reporting application, noting with satisfaction that 0 structural behavioral incidents had been flagged over the past 3 consecutive weeks, a massive improvement from the old average of multiple complaints per week. "What are the concrete results of our mandatory ongoing bias and empathy training sessions?" Amara asked as they entered the executive wing. "The staff has actually begun to look forward to these monthly sessions," Marcus revealed, because they are structured as open case study discussions led by business school professors rather than boring corporate compliance lectures, allowing our team to collaborate on solving real-world customer service challenges together. We have also established an internal peer accountability system where team members actively shadow each other's sales presentations to provide constructive real-time feedback, which has fostered a healthy, positive competition centered entirely around maximizing customer comfort and service excellence. As they prepared to exit the floor, Marcus informed Amara that the incredible financial and cultural success of the Beverly Hills location had caught the attention of the entire national franchise network, with several other regional locations now requesting implementation support to replicate their model. What happened right here on this floor 6 weeks ago has officially become the definitive blueprint for our system-wide corporate transformation, Amara concluded, with a smile, proving that when you hold prejudice accountable, justice is not only achieved, but it becomes profoundly profitable for everyone involved.